She was only 19 years old at the time, and she met all of the requirements that a lender would have to be able to be approved for purchasing a three-family home. Um, but for whatever reason, the particular lender didn't seem to be motivated to approve her. They never denied her, but they would just kept throwing different obstacles out there for her to get to, um, that that seemed to be a little bit of a challenge. So we actually went to the bank one day and unannounced and just asked for either a rejection letter or an approval right now.
Welcome to a series of unfortunate real estate events, a podcast where we talk about real issues that come up from the time a property goes under contract till the time it actually closes, and what other real estate professionals can learn from them. This week, I'm joined with
Mitchell
from,
Stevenson.
Mitchell Stevenson from William Ravis Real Estate in Milford. We're going to talk about a couple of closings that just didn't go to plan and ultimately how they turned out. Thank you for joining us, Mitchell. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, I've been practicing real estate since actually 1987. I started out doing the mortgage business, processing loans, underwriting loans. Then I moved into real estate sales in 1992, and that's what I've been doing ever since.
Perfect. How did you go from mortgages to real estate agent?
Uh, well, actually, it was a situation where some of the top real estate agents that I was doing mortgages for decided to open up their own brokerage, and they asked me to join them. I had my license for real estate, and it was something I was always interested in doing, and that was an opportunity for me to get started in the business.
Perfect. And then mortgages is where you started your career, or did you have a career before that?
No, that was actually where I started my career, doing mortgages. Started out at the very beginning processing loans, did that for a bit, and then I went into underwriting loans. I did that for about a year before I actually went out and started doing taking mortgages applications for clients on the road, which led to me meeting up with a few good real estate brokers that opened up their own brokerage and asked me to join them.
All right. Uh, so would you say you specialize in any part of real estate, or is it kind of a general practice for you?
I like to try and experience as much real estate as I can in all the different venues that are available to me. But one of the things that has been a staple in my career is working with first-time home buyers.
Okay.
Um, some of the programs that are available to them has been something that I've been able to really hone my skills on and help a lot of people out and get that very first home. And it's been very meaningful.
Um, you kind of answered my next question. I was going to be kind of why is it the first time home buyer? What is it you like about them? Uh,
Well, what I find is that a lot of times there are situations, especially in the minority communities, where people just don't feel like that's an opportunity that they're ever going to get to. Is that having pride in home ownership, and with some of the programs that are available throughout the state and other lenders, it's definitely an opportunity. It's just a matter of finding the path that fits their needs best and trying to pursue it.
so I normally don't ask this question, but I kind of leave this with because we hopefully get some first time home buyers listening to. What is one piece of advice you give to a first time home buyer?
Don't put it off. You
Don't put it
know,
off.
the biggest thing that I hear from a lot of first time home buyers is that they don't think they're as ready as they are. And my opinion is that let's sit down and come up with a plan, even if it's 6 months, a year, 2 years down the road. Once you have a map that you can follow, it makes a more realistic opportunity for you.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think too many home buyers say, "Oh yeah, I'm not ready," and the sad reality is, I don't think they're ever ready. Right?
Well, a lot of times you're ready, you don't realize you're ready. With some of the programs that are available, and a lot of times the biggest hurdle people think is putting together enough money to get in their foot in the door, and they think that they need thousands and thousands of dollars, where maybe it's an opportunity where they don't. And,
I,
some of the programs that will allow you to
I
take
agree.
advantage of low down payments or no down payments.
Right? I agree. I think there's a lot of people still believe you got to go 20% down.
Yeah, unfortunately, but you're right.
Um, and you know, we do a lot where there's some great loan programs that you come out with very little money out of pocket, which are phenomenal. I'm sure you know more than I do because you're focusing on first time home buyers. You've got a whole slew of benefits that they can kind of go apply for.
Yeah, yeah, there are some great opportunities out there. The challenges are, prices are as high as they've been since I've been in this business for the last 40 years, but doesn't mean that it's impossible.
No, no, not by any means. All right, so kind of switching gears, let's chat a little bit about a closing you've had that just didn't go right. Right? Maybe it's running along smooth, and then there's a bump in the road that threw us off course.
Well, yeah, I would have to say the one that has been probably the most prominent in my career was with a young lady that was fully qualified, and they happened to be a first time buyer. She was only 19 years old at the time, and she met all of the requirements that a lender would have to be able to be approved for purchasing a three-family home. Um, but for whatever reason, the particular lender didn't seem to be motivated to approve her. They never denied her, but they would just kept throwing different obstacles out there for her to get to um, that that seemed to be a little bit of a challenge. So we actually went to the bank one day and unannounced and just asked for either a rejection letter or an approval right now. We've met all the criterias, and if you don't approve this loan, I think that there will be a lawsuit that you may have to deal with. But after about having us wait in their conference room for about 15 or 20 minutes later, they came out with a mortgage approval and offered me a job. We took the approval, but I denied the job.
That's probably a smart move, right? Uh, yeah, and I think that is a good lesson though that for a first time home buyer that it's not always a smooth straight line, right? There's a lot that goes into this, and we've got um, some lenders that aren't that great, right? Based on it sounds like they were either somebody wasn't doing their job or somebody dropped the ball is what caused that delay. Because
That's what it is a lot of times, I think, or, going through the mortgage process, there's not, there are guidelines that have to be followed. There are requirements that you have to meet, but everybody's mortgage application is almost just like their own personality. They're all different in their own way, and you just have to be able to let their personality of what they have come into play on how you're going to approach getting them approved and what they need to do to get themselves in a position to be approved for a mortgage.
so I got to ask, what was your client's reaction when you walked into the bank with her, right? Because I don't think many realtors will go to that level.
Well, it was definitely unique. She was extremely happy. Like I said, she was really relying on what I had to present to the bank because she was only 19 at the time. So she didn't realize that it was something she could get done. But if it was an opportunity, she definitely wanted to take advantage of it. So of course she was elated. And, that transaction, every time I see her, she reminds me of it and how happy she was that she had that opportunity to become a homeowner, especially at such a young age.
So I got to ask, how old is she now?
I don't ask. I don't ask. Like I tell you, that transaction was about 25 years ago. So if you do the math, I would imagine she's probably in her mid to late 40s.
So I guess the follow up question to me though is how many times have you worked with her since?
Two or three times. She's bought several properties. Um, and one of the things I do pride myself on is that they refer family members. So I was able to sell her mom's home for her. And those are the types of things that I provide when I try to provide service that's 100% satisfaction.
I was gonna say I gotta imagine she was gonna stick with you and probably refer out family, especially after you walked into the bank and basically told them to cut the bullshit, right? Uh, Naya said, "Give us the loan, move on with our lives."
Yeah. Pretty much. You summed it up right there. That's how we did it. But you know what else makes me proud is that I've also had opportunities where I've not only worked with the family, but I've worked with their children and grandchildren. I've had closing last year where it was actually her grandmother that referred me to her. So I had a chance to sell her grandmother a house and her a house as well. And that again, those are the things that give me pride is when a family member trusts me with their children to be able to help them get into their first home.
Did she have a backup plan for if that they you guys left the branch with a denial letter? Was there a backup plan in place, or is it just terminating
Uh,
elsewhere?
At that time, we had not come up with a backup plan. I was pretty confident that they didn't want to reject her when she met all of their qualifications. And being that she was only 19 years old and she was a female and she happened to be African American, I kind of let the bank know that I don't think that there's a judge in this country that wouldn't see this as anything other than some type of discrimination, especially when she meets the qualifications that you have. And so, like I said, after about 20 minutes of us waiting in their conference room, they came out with a letter of approval for the loan.
Well, she's lucky that she had you on your side to push that because, like I said, I don't know that there's a lot of realtors that would do that. Um, so she's
Well,
very lucky that you did that. You're able to close on her home, get her in situated, and uh, proof is in the pudding. She's referred you 3 or 4 times herself, and then family members.
in this business, you have to rely on the effect that you put on people and give them the opportunity to trust in what you're telling them and then prove it.
Yeah,
It's all in the proof at the end of the day.
exactly. What would be a piece of advice you'd give to, again, going back to that first time home buyer in the situation of your client? What's a piece of advice you'd give them when you're not getting a response from the mortgage lender?
Um, be patient and be resilient. And don't give up. You have to keep all of your focus on the goal.
Okay, I like that. I mean, especially because you can't walk into many mortgage companies in today's day and age. Everyone's remote to go harass somebody. Let me take it back. Push on somebody to get the answers you need to. It's a little bit harder today because everybody works
Yeah,
in remote parts of the country.
correct, correct. We especially after the pandemic, everything is so remote. It's a lot of hands off. I can remember back in the earlier times where everyone would sit in one room around the table, and the sellers, the buyers, the two attorneys, and the two agents, and at the end, when all the papers were signed, everybody would shake hands and pass keys and say good luck. And that probably hasn't happened in 10, 15 years now.
Yeah,
Most importantly now after the pandemic.
right. I mean, after the pandemic, nobody beats anybody anymore, right? Me and like
Exactly.
it's the client. Some agents still show up, some don't, but it's the client and the attorney,
Yeah.
and everything's done by FedEx.
Everything's remote.
It's an interesting time now. So a lot of what we see are small problems that turn into big headaches that potentially ruin your deals. That's something you guys come across often, where it's some small little
Yes,
issue that became big because it wasn't addressed quick enough.
absolutely. Those problems that sometimes it could be just something of an inspection that turns out to be bigger than what it is. Now what I would say is that it's important to really look at the condition of a property from an insurance perspective. Um,
Yeah.
there was a time where we would always just estimate how much you would pay for insurance on a monthly basis to get you qualified without knowing anything about the property, because obviously in the pre-qualification process you don't have a property yet. But now it's become a lot more prevalent to know more about the property and the age of the roof, because that's going to be a big factor in determining how you're going to insure the property.
Yeah, we've had that come up a lot where somebody closes and then the insurance company does an inspection and the roof needs to be replaced.
Oh gosh,
And
dealing with it right now.
the client's answer, what am I supposed to do? I just put all my money into the house. I don't have the money for a
Yeah,
roof. It's
yeah,
it's unfortunate. And I kind of wish the insurance companies would do those inspections earlier, maybe
yeah.
during the closing process, but doesn't seem like they will.
Well, I don't know if really that would have been the answer because the particular case that I've dealt with recently, um, the roof from the inspection of the inspector, he projected it was about half the life. And if it's a 25 to 30-year roof, you're thinking the roof age is about 12 to 15 years old, and you got another good 10 to 12 years left in it. And the insurance company didn't have a problem with that at the time that they closed on the property.
Of course
But
not.
now here we are in today's world, insurance companies are looking at these roofs and they're saying if they're half the life is gone on the roof, we want you to replace it or we're not going to reinsure you.
Yeah.
Where that wasn't what they were looking at when they sold you the policy.
Yep. We're running into that a lot. Uh,
So that's one of the pitfalls that I think can be handled prior to by just getting a better grip on the overall condition of the property and how the insurance company is going to approach it.
so that's something you started to advise clients on when they have older roofs to kind of plan for that as part of their process.
Yeah, I have to because now if the insurance company's guidelines are that if your roof has got half the life left, we want you to buy a new roof. That's something that I think any home buyer, especially a first-time home buyer, needs to be aware of going into the deal, so that it's not as big a shock or a financial burden at the time it happens.
Right. I gotta say, your clients already. It seems like your clients are lucky to have you on their side because not only you're thinking about them in terms of what's going to happen after they close, but during even they're in the process, you hold their hand enough to what. Yeah, I was key to keep coming back to you going into the bank. I'm impressed with that. Uh,
Well, that's why I emphasize and I try to make it a habit every time to do an initial consultation with my clients. And there's no charge for that. It's just a matter of us taking 45 minutes, hour and a half, depending on how many questions they have, to give them a clear understanding of what to expect throughout this process, not only just the qualifying and being involved with the bank and the mortgage, but all of the aspects that are necessary in actually, buying a home in today's world or today's market, I should say. One of the things that really had a big impact on that was the lawsuit against the National Association of Realtors. It changed the structure of how now sellers and buyers have to pay for their real estate agent services. And these are things that you never had to worry about prior to 2024 that now are a big factor in how you can approach your home buying process, and it's something that you should be aware of before you start the process of looking.
I like that. I really respect you for that 45-minute consult to an hour and a half. You said, are you just digging through the process? Or are you kind of doing a little bit of education and kind of seeing what their goals are? What are you running in those meetings?
Well, during that time frame, first of all, I just like to let them understand what is going to be expected. Um, and I like to get an understanding of what it is that they're looking for and what they want to accomplish. And so it's kind of like a give and take. I first of all, I clear myself with all of the not legal disqualifications, but legal disclosures I have to make. I let them know about lead paint. I let them know about agency and how I work. I share with them how the commission structures are set up now, as far as whether a seller may or may not be paying for the buyer's agent's commission, and how all these things can be approached in the different ways that they can be approached. You could possibly build the commission into the purchase price. Um, there are still sellers out there that are willing to pay a commission to a buyer's agent. But all of these things are a factor that need to be disclosed as early as possible.
Yeah, that's awesome, right? That getting that guidance is inside how many times that becomes a problem. Oh, I didn't know how to pay the bills or a commission,
Yeah.
and it especially because you
Well,
do a first time home buyers, they may not have that extra cash to think about that. If
that's it wasn't a factor prior to 2024
right,
because the seller was always paying the commission and it was disclosed right in the MLS. so that there was never an issue with, how the commissions were going to be paid. But now that those structures are changed, where a seller could say, I'm not willing to pay a buyer's agent their commission. Now, if that buyer really wants that house, we have to understand that, it has to be worked out where there's going to be a commission that's got to be paid, um, and how it's going to be paid. A lot of times you could build it into the price, or you could, pay it from your savings, but that is an important factor that we never had to deal with before.
And I think the sad reality there is, um, they required it coming off the MLS, which I think it hurt the buyer, right? Because if you're going to buy a house and you know that you got to pay a commission on house A, but house B you don't, you may not look at house A. You might just go straight to house B, and now you got a house you've fallen in love with, and then you find out you got to pay the commission. It becomes tough for them.
It can be a challenge. It can certainly be a challenge. Um, and again, that's where it's important to know in advance what it is that you may or may not be able to do. Because if we have again that initial consultation, if I know that my clients only want to look at properties where the sellers are paying the commission for them, then at least we're going to try and streamline our showing tours to accommodate the properties that fit their needs.
Right.
But you compound that with a limited supply that we've been dealing with for the last 7 or 8 years, and it does make it a little bit more of a challenge.
Well, and it's also, and I think the lawsuit hurt the buyer because it now requires a lot more of your time and effort, and sometimes you might not get an answer whether the commission is going to be covered or not, right? You got to call and find out versus before it takes you 2 seconds to look at the MLS. It's
Exactly.
I get the intention behind the lawsuit, but I think it hurt buyers more than it helped them.
I think I would have to tend to agree with you there. I think that it was it definitely made it more difficult for a buyer to become successful homeowner in this market, but not impossible.
Yeah,
And again, it's just having that knowledge and understanding up front of exactly what's going to be required of you, so that when you do get to that point, it's not something that you're finding out after the fact, where it could potentially affect your ability to close on the deal.
exactly. All right. So from the lawsuit, what's a lesson to a new buyer, a new homeowner?
You mean based on the lawsuit from NAR to
Yeah.
the new homeowner? Well, if they became a new homeowner, I think the lessons that you're all set.
No, I
Sit
meant
tight, enjoy.
somebody looking to buy their
Somebody
first
that's
house.
looking,
Yeah.
that's
Sorry.
out there looking. Again, I think the most important thing they have to understand is that um, they need to know in advance what their financial capabilities are and what their financial options are. And, you know, if they're in a position where they can pay their realtor, which most of the first time home buyers are not, they need to know, are there any other ways that we can structure this so that I can look at all of the homes that are on the market. Um, because if the seller is not paying a buyer's agent, maybe they could sell the house a little bit cheaper than if they were paying a buyer's agent.
Right.
So these are the things that you have to try and look at all of the different possibilities and opportunities that are out there, and keep an open mind.
Makes sense. And I think that's the key of what you're doing is you're sitting down with that 45 minutes and going through this with them versus just shoving a
Good.
piece of paper in front of them and telling them to sign, which we both know that.
It's very important. Very important. Yeah. And the unique thing about it is that, I've met with clients in the past where um they say, well, my other agent that I was working with, they never told me that. And so that's what kind of like reinforces and fortifies it for me to want to be able to disclose as much information in the beginning, because I tell my clients that, a surprise is great if it's a birthday party. But when you're in a real estate transaction, you want to eliminate as many surprises as you can.
I really like that. That's a model we try to live by too, right? So I'm going to actually change it up now because I don't think I've used that. I use pregnancy a lot. Uh,
Okay.
the dad,
Well, I like to hear that one. Okay, that's it.
as a dad of two girls, I remember both pregnancies very Well, my wife does not. And that's the example I
Okay.
use, is buying a house is like a pregnancy. All the pain you're going to go through, you'll forget at closing, right?
Right. Right.
You forget all the headache. Once you have that baby, you're going to forget about all that headache.
That is a good point. I do agree.
But I
I'm a
like,
father of three sons, and I can agree with you
yeah,
there.
but I, um, I like the idea of, surprises are good at a birthday party. Not so much when you're buying a house. I think I'm going to start using that analogy because that's a good one too,
Okay.
right? Um,
Absolutely. Absolutely. You
right.
know, I go on and say, I don't walk on water, but I do know where the rocks are.
I like that. No, because right, and it goes to all different ways through the process, right? You don't want surprises.
Absolutely.
You don't want surprises as a home buyer. You don't want surprises as the real estate agent. You don't want surprises as the attorney, and you definitely don't want surprises as the mortgage broker, right?
Yeah. Right. Right. So again, it comes down to that initial consultation. A lot of times when we're sitting down talking, once we've talked about, the legal stuff as far as representation, lead paint, now we're talking about, how much do you want to spend on a house? What is your income? What is your employment? And, it gives me an opportunity to share with them what the bank is going to be looking for.
Right.
You know, it's not so prevalent now because everyone uses, you know, all their documents online. But I used to tell people, look, save every bank statement, save every pay stub from now to the day you close, because the bank is not only going to ask for it today, they're going to ask for it tomorrow, and they're going to probably ask for it the day before the closing. Um, Another thing from a buyer's perspective, uh, don't don't go out and buy any furniture once you find a house because the bank is going to check your credit report the day before you close. And you smile because we both crossed that bridge. Where you find a buyer that they're so excited about their new home and they want new furniture and new appliances, and the person at the appliance store, he's a good salesman. He's like, well, we're not going to sell it to you right now, but let's just get you ready for it. So when your house is empty, then next thing you know, it shows up on your credit report.
Yep.
Next thing you know, the lender's following up on your credit the day before you close, and they want to know, well, what did you go? You went to this store, and it looks like you may have gotten an inquiry. Did you buy the furniture?
Right before they take out they do the no interest, payments for 1 year, but that ends up now affecting their debt to income ratio.
Absolutely, absolutely.
We had a we
So
had
yeah,
a friend of mine in another part of the country was telling me, we always talk about war stories. He had a client
uh,
that had a new truck the day of closing, and the
okay.
guy's like, all right, as long as you bought one truck, you're good. He goes, but if you bought two, you got a problem. Well, lo and behold, he had bought
What to? Oh no.
two trucks. It was
Oh
the it was an expensive lesson for him because he lost his deposit, but
wow. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
uh,
So those things, like you said, those are the types of things that, again, that initial consultation goes so far. And I think every agent knows now, look, we tell them, don't buy anything between now and when you buy the house.
or quick,
After you sign the papers at the lawyer's office, at your office, after you sign the papers, you can go and buy the car, the furniture, or anything you want. But
I actually tell people to wait 24 hours after we close because there's a couple of lenders out
how
there.
long? 24 hours?
24 hours after
Okay.
close, just because if
Okay,
they
then I'll have to take that advice.
yeah. And the other one we tell people is not to quit their jobs. Right? We've had a few people uh,
Wow. Yeah,
quit their job during the process. Yeah, given they got a better job, but
yeah,
could have waited an
yeah,
extra week and we would have been
yeah.
fine.
And see, that's what I think a lot of, especially first-time home buyers, they don't realize that, when you're dealing with the bank in your mortgage process, we're trying to get a snapshot of a moving picture. And the more you move it, the harder it is to get that snapshot. And so you just got to kind of like keep everything consistent and not move so much during that 30 to 45-day period that we're getting you approved for the mortgage.
And it's also probably a little bit of a lesson. Don't go buy furniture on credit anyways, because they're sneaky. They throw other fees in there. They make sure they make their money, right?
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
but if you are, don't do it during the closing process. Wait till we
No,
close.
no, nothing. We don't want anything to change on that credit report other than the fact that, your monthly payments are still being consistently paid and the balances are going down. You
Right.
know, I remember I had one broker who said he used to love it when a buyer would come to his office in an old beat up car as opposed to a brand new car because you already know what was going to look like on their credit report.
That's true. Um, I had a. It's fascinating what people think they shouldn't do, and I give you a lot of credit because I don't think enough people take the time to explain it to new clients. Don't go buy new cars. Don't go buy new credit. Go open new credit cards. Don't do anything. Make Maintain status quo. Um, because it's always a hiccup, right? There's always
Yeah,
something. Listen, we especially around the holidays, we get a lot of clients that mess things up because they go open the department store credit card. But I was going to save
right.
25% off. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
it's going to cost you a lot
Now,
more.
right. And the lenders, that's what they're trained to do. They look for these types of things because they know people make these types of purchases or these types of changes in their credit that could potentially impact their qualification guidelines. And I can't blame the lenders because, they're doing it because they know they have to resell that mortgage.
Right.
And if they don't have a resaleable mortgage, then that puts them in a bad spot where they can't lend future money.
Right.
So it's all kind of a reoccurring type of scenario that's important for everyone.
Well, the other part, in talking to first time home buyers, because you do that a lot, I'm sure you also mentioned you really shouldn't be making any financial moves without talking to a mortgage broker, right?
Correct.
We've had clients that have gone the route of paying down debt, which you would think is a good thing, but it ended up hurting them because the cash went away that built up,
Oh,
right?
okay.
Right?
Okay.
All their cash has gone down. The lender's like, well, what happened? You had
Right, right.
We had a client 30 grand in the bank a week before closing. The week of closing, it was down to 10. Luckily, he had enough to cover his closing costs, but the bank's like, where did that money go?
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
And even the other flip side is clients that deposit large sums of cash because they've been, you know, my best friend buying his house.
Oh, ooh,
Yeah.
yes, yeah,
My best friend bought his house, him and his wife. Luckily, they in line with what you're saying, they consulted with him before they did anything, but they had done a competition who could save more cash, right, for the down payment.
yeah,
I was
right,
like,
right,
I was like, they told me about that earlier. I'm like, okay, we need to get this deposited before you start looking at houses. Get it
right,
in the bank. The bank needs to see no cash.
right,
Um,
right.
so
Yeah, I had a similar situation. One of my clients that I worked with a few years back, um, we talked about the cash, like you said, and he was anticipating selling his motorcycle to get the money for his deposit. And I was glad that he disclosed that with me at that time because I told him, I said, you have to really do this during the mortgage process. Don't do it before. Because if you sell that motorcycle, you put $15,000 in the bank and there's no paper trail of it, it just frustrates it and the bank is not going to be able to use that money as part of your pocket. So what we were able to do was during the mortgage application process, he let the loan officer know that I have this motorcycle that I'm going to sell. And the loan officer said, well, great. I need to see a copy of your title. I need to see a copy of the bill of sale. And then I need to see the deposit of the money going into your account. And because he did that during the mortgage process, they were able to source all of the funds that he received so that he could actually use that money for his closing. Had
yeah,
he just sold a motorcycle without saying anything and put that money in his account, the bank would have been Well, all of a sudden you get $15,000 in your account. We need to know where that money came from. And if he didn't save any of that documentation, it would have been a situation where the bank would have said, "Well, it's great you got the 15,000 in there, but we can't count it towards the monies that we're going to use for your down payment and closing costs." So, and a lot of times buyers don't realize that money. They look at that 3 months prior to you actually applying for the mortgage.
Right.
So, and a lot of times it could be a family member that knows that you're looking to buy a house and they want to give you a few $1,000s, and you take that money and you just deposit it into your bank without it having a source and without being able to track where it came from. It becomes a complicated situation where they will not allow you to use that money towards your purchase.
Right. And even sometimes if they can track it, they won't allow it because it's cash. If it's cash, especially if it's cash, because
Well,
even if I show the withdrawal from my bank account to my kid's bank account, right, the cash leaves and deposits. It can't be in the same cash. They won't qualify because it could be different cash,
right, right,
right?
right.
So if I guess the lesson there is if you're going to be getting a gift from somebody for a house, either do it 3 or 4 months before you start the process, or let us all know, right?
Exactly,
There's a
exactly.
there is a way to do everything.
You got to know where the rocks are.
Got to know where the rocks are. Don't give me stupid advice now.
Yeah, yeah, you can cross the river, but you got to know where the rocks are.
Yeah, and we know where the rocks are, so rely on us.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah,
So what?
I do like working with you, Attorney Kapoor. You are very efficient.
Yes, we try to be, because we want to make sure all those rocks that are there. I'm gonna use that now. I want to make sure I'm watching the rocks and not getting a splash in the river. Uh,
That's right.
so
Got to be able to get you the other side.
exactly. Uh, so let me ask you this: if you're a brand, if there's a brand new agent watching this, what's one piece of advice you give a brand new agent, or a couple pieces if it's hard to narrow it down?
Yeah, again, I am a field trader at my office, so I do share a lot of information with the new agents if they choose to retain my services, and it's just you really have to understand the process, and whether you're working with a seller or a buyer. I encourage them to sit down with me when I'm doing the consultations. I encourage them to go with me when I'm previewing the property, because the I guess the best piece of advice is be patient. It's not going to happen all at once, but you have to do certain things a number of times. It's a numbers game. You're not going to always remember everything on the first time that you do it or the first time that you hear it, but you have to give yourself patience and just understand all of the process of what you're dealing with, especially all of the documents that we have now. We have listing contracts that have changed drastically in the last 2 years. We have buyer contracts that have changed drastically. And, I think it's for the good, especially when it comes to a buyer and your representation, because buyers, in the past, there have been situations where buyers didn't know that they had an agent, didn't know that they were supposed to sign a contract with an agent, and now it kind of cleared things up where in order for you to take a buyer into any type of property, they have to be disclosed to that, that when you first meet them, that they're not represented until they sign a contract. And then more importantly, if you want to see this house, there has to be a contract signed. So they have to be able to understand, the buyer has to be able to understand what it is they're getting themselves into.
That's you gave a couple of good tips there.
Yeah, well, I like to share. I like to be able to be as informed as possible, because I think it just makes the whole process a lot more obtainable and smooth and possible when you take the time up front to go over the important parts of the puzzle or of the transaction, I should say.
I love that. I love that. So it's a great way to end our podcast today. What I'm going to ask though from you is if you're somebody's looking to hire you as their real estate agent, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Uh, my tag is hashtag sold on service. I
Okay.
do believe in service is the most important part of what I do. But you could always reach me at my website, which is mitchellstevenson at Ravis.com.
All right.
Um, or hashtag sold on service.
Perfect.
That's what matters to me.
Well, so if anyone's looking for a great real estate agent, be sure to go to Mitchell's website or follow him. Sold on service. Hashtag
Sold
sold.
on service. Hashtag sold on service, Facebook or Instagram. I'm not
Perfect.
the best social media guy, but you can find me there.
That's all right. Perfectly. I'll put a link, and there'll be a link in the chat, the description below for the website. So if anyone wants to connect with Mitchell, that is a great way to do so. Mitchell,
Thank
thank
you.
you for your time today, and I look forward to working together again soon.
It was my pleasure. And I look forward to working with you in the future as well. Again.
Sounds good.
All right.